There's cybersecurity issues, there's aging infrastructure issues, there's climate change issues that need to be solved, and I'm really excited that in my career I get to work on those types of problems. As a young professional, IEEE has given me access to opportunities to go to conferences, meet really cool people in the field, and so I think what IEEE provides is access to the larger community, and I don't know where else you would get that. IEEE is my competitive edge.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another IEEE USA Livestream webinar, Young Engineers, Complement Your Degree by Taking Steps to Licensure. I'm your host for today, Jonathan Cho. Our presenters for today are IEEE members Drs. Kathleen Kramer and Hasala Dharmawardena. Kathleen is a professor of electrical engineering at the University of San Diego. She has contributed as a member of technical staff at several companies, including Viasat, Hewlett-Packard, and Bell Communications Research. She served as Director of Engineering between 2004 to 2013, providing academic leadership for all the university's engineering programs. She is a past member of the Board of Directors for IEEE, has served on IEEE USA's board and its Government Relations Council, and is a distinguished lecturer and current member of the IEEE Aerospace and Electronics Systems Society. She's recognized as a fellow of the accredited Board for Engineering and Technology for her contributions advancing the accreditation criteria for cybersecurity and mechatronics. Hasala is an electric power engineer with over a decade of experience working in the design, construction, and commissioning of power systems, and in the research and development of transmission and distribution system technology. He's an avid energy policy advocate and has contributed to numerous utility rate cases across the globe. A passionate volunteer for IEEE, he currently serves as the chair of the IEEE Young Professionals Committee. Previously, he served as a young professional representative on the IEEE USA Board of Directors, vice chair of IEEE Young Professionals, and the Power and Energy Society Student Chapters Committee chair. He's also past Region 3 YP coordinator, IEEE YP Sri Lanka Affinity Group chair, IEEE Norway webmaster, and Student Activities Committee chair. Without further ado, I will now pass it off to our presenters. Welcome, Kathleen and Hasala. We're very excited for what you have for our audience today.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here. Okay, so just starting off, here's an overview of our presentation. Well, you'll get to meet us a little bit, and then we'll talk about licensure and the meaning and value of this credential. And then we'll talk about the steps to licensure. And so first of all, thanks for Jonathan introducing us earlier. And I'm Kathleen Kramer. And Hasala, could you introduce yourself also?
Hey, I'm Hasala Dharmawardena. Yes, I am a power system consultant at Siemens, and I've been through the FEP process recently. So I'm here to give the perspective of someone who's closer to the process.
Yeah, excellent. Yes, and so I've set it up at key points. Will be just getting your firsthand experience to help us. And so this is probably an overly texty slide, and there's various reasons you might want to get a PE or a professional engineering license. And so some reasons that I've heard are that you might want to be respected and recognized and qualified in the profession. And quite literally, it can provide a title, literally letters after your name. In some countries where I visited, you get a title kind of like Mr. Like engineer Kramer or engineer, and that's pretty nice. You can provide yourself with additional career and professional development. It's a credential that stands out. There are averages that show that PEs typically earn more than similar peers. it can also show a commitment to the public good and to demonstrate expertise and competence as part of one's responsibility to professional ethics. And engineers are trusted, and licensed engineers are trusted to protect health, safety, and welfare. A licensed professional engineer, it depends really on your jurisdiction. Seems too harsh of a word, but the license is granted in a particular locality or by the government. And so what government? And in the US, it's a state or territory. And the rules and what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do vary that way. And in various countries, what you're allowed to do and what's required vary. And so it varies considerably. And so, Hasala, maybe you could talk about your motivations and what you considered.
Yes, so I'm in the power sector. So the PE part is it has a lot of value for our community, especially because there is a lot of legal work that's been done, and it's a legal requirement. But for me, it was also a challenge that I wanted to be out there and be and get up professionally. So it is definitely, there is a big step up in your career when you work through your PE and you get your PE. That gives you a good standing within the larger community. It gives you a larger voice and recognition, and it comes with other advantages with regard to salary, with regard to job opportunities as well. So those were kind of the drivers from my end. I wanted to stand out of the stack of people when I was starting looking for jobs, and I wanted to make sure that I got people saw that and could give me a better package as we get into salary negotiations. Kathleen.
Right. So in your particular case, you're saying that it's definitely useful in your industry, and which is the power industry. And so there's amongst electrical and computer engineering, it seems that power is one of the key places where licensing is important. It's not the only place, though, would you say?
Yes, but it still gives us, when even if it, so for me it's not necessarily a legal requirement in the work that I do, but it
Mhm.
it gives that standing, and then that's that brand that you want to create. And definitely it helps, even if it's not power. If you go through the process, people know that you are a solid engineer who has got their fundamentals, and then that they are willing to stand up and move forward in the career.
Ah, thank you. So there's some steps to licensure, and oftentimes people are really concerned about passing the PE or professional engineering exam. And it's not just one exam. We'll talk about that a little bit. Um, uh, but you have to get qualified to be able to take that exam. And so each of these jurisdictions that I mentioned has its own requirements, a re-education experience. There's kind of a standard list in the United States and some of these countries that I'm listing at the side here. Um, but even sort of there's a lot of substitutions that, depending upon where you're interested in becoming licensed, that you can take some alternative pathways. So the typical education that's required is an ABET accredited um, be an undergraduate degree in engineering, and not specifically in a discipline. Typically it's just an accredited undergraduate degree um, in an engineering discipline. And then you have to get experience, and then you have to get some experience. And a typical number is 4 years of experience. And then what what counts as that experience depends upon your locality. And so depending upon your locality, they can be more or less concerned with the supervision that you have by another licensed engineer, and what exceptions they have for, you know, how many licensed engineers you're surrounded by, for example. And then the the step that people are very aware of are the examinations. And there's two examinations. One is the FE, or Fundamentals of Engineering exam, and one is the Professional Engineering exam. And the Fundamentals of Engineering exam is typically taken as you're graduating with your undergraduate degree, because it's intended to be based upon knowledge that you would have as an undergraduate. And so I'll often tell my students to take it as early as they can, because there really aren't that many standard senior level classes. And so you only forget more the longer you wait. And so you might, that's just my advice, but you can take it at any time. And in my experience, once you pass that exam, as far as I know, you're passed forever. and that you don't have to go back. That's my understanding. And so Hasala, when did you take the FE, or did you take the FE?
So yeah, I did. I think around 3 years ago, when I was
So
looking
you
to.
waited.
Yeah, so it's a little different from me, because I came to US for the PhD. So
Ah,
but yeah, so I went through a more of a round path. But if you are here and you have a bit accredited BS engineering degree, the third year, that's when you need to start looking at the FE, because it's just the content you write for your exam. So just one stone, two birds. So it's so easy. It's so. But then if you wait, yeah, it could it's not that it's hard, but it could there will be a little mental resistance. That's how I would put it. It is not hard, but people tend to be a little scared about having to go back to studying the fundamentals.
yeah. And because they're supposedly fundamental. Um, and so this is overseen, in the particular individual requirements um, do, as I said, vary a lot from place to place. And like, you might be able to substitute the degree requirements with enough experience, for example, or the test. Um, the government has an interest, and the motivations for licensure are they grounded in a history of governments needing to be concerned for public safety in the work of engineers. And historically, it's been disasters and sometimes tragic situations that have motivated governments to say we have to be concerned to make sure that we have people that are qualified. And in California, they add in extra qualifications, for example, for earthquakes and seismic understanding for the civil engineers. And one of my sources pointed out that the Fire Protection Association, that's a big concern, that you're protecting for that. So the public welfare and the concern for public welfare also would include economics, that you don't want to waste public funds by having you don't want people to die by structures collapsing, or getting on fire, but you also don't want to have to build them over and over again. And as we mentioned, the jurisdictions include, so there are individual boards at the state level and in each of the states. And so, of course, I looked at my own state, California, and Hasala, I believe you're South Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And but the states often have agreements so that you need to be licensed in the state or territory. So there's a different one for Puerto Rico than there is for Guam. But very oftentimes there's agreements so that your qualifications, perhaps with a fee, can be transferred and you get your license in other places. It does not have to be where you reside necessarily. And then for those who get licensed in the US, here's the ones that are apparently in sync. And I don't know if you know more than I know about it, Hasla. So this I got off of the website yesterday. And so the different Canadian territories, and specifically Egypt, Korea, Saudi Arabia, and Taiwan, Turkey, Japan, and the Emirate of Sharjah, all are aligned with this system. I've also seen in countries that are not included on the list, although, so Sharjah, I have visited in Sharjah, and I've seen a separate government approach that's taken there. In some countries, the professional engineer's license is a license that allows you to teach at the university level, even without a master's degree, which is not typical here, but so it really depends on the jurisdiction. So talking about the fundamentals of engineering exam, as we were saying, you should typically want to take this as you graduate or even earlier, such as after the third year. And for the US version of the test, you have 6 hours to complete, and you would do it at a testing center. And you could do it by arrangement. So in the past, back when I was young, it was once a year that they would offer it. And as now some of the PE exams are offered. But now you can make arrangements. And there's 7 variations for the US test. What I've observed in some other countries is that it's really, they'll let you take, upon graduation, they'll have what's really more of a combined exam, and it's essentially the PE exam without the experience. It's kind of like a thesis, so it can be quite different. But for the US, Canada, and those countries that I mentioned, there's 7 variations on the FE exam, and I highlighted 2 of them. So one is electrical and computer, which is what you would expect for electrical and computer majors to take. In my observation, a good portion of students will also choose to take the other disciplines. And when it says other disciplines, since it's all other disciplines, I would explain, my wording would be that that's really general. And so it tends to have a combination of topics, and I would say more, I don't know, junior level topics, because it's considered appropriate for any discipline to take. And so probably about a third of my students might choose to take the other disciplines one. And when you're done, the credential is really the same, whichever of those you took. So no matter what variation you get, you do get that credential. And I have some links in here for people. And I also, I thought this was true everywhere, but I looked at a few places, and it was only California where I found it was true. And so maybe Hasla, maybe you know, but in California, you become an engineer in training once you pass the FE exam. And so you get a little certificate that says you are an EIT. And so you could use that title immediately upon passing the exam. And then, but when I looked at a few other states, I didn't see that mentioned, but it's mentioned. Do you happen to know, Hasla?
Yeah, so in South Carolina, you have to send an application. So one important thing is to use the NCES. So just maintaining the NCES record. So once you finish it, you can send it through the NCES portal to the board that you are interested in getting your EIT.
Oh,
And once you send it, and then you send your you send the request, I believe that's when they send us the certificate for with the EIT.
so the difference is just that in many places you might have to request it.
That's what I can remember
Yeah.
from the top of my
And
head.
so
Yep.
you would still need to pass the FE first. And but if you have passed the FE, why not try to get it? It seems like a no lose choice. So here's a report that a person who took the FE might get after they took it. And this has far too much detail to be interesting. But I thought that what was interesting was just the level of detail you would get. So you probably wouldn't care at all if you passed, but you might care if you didn't pass. That the next time you take it, you know what to study for. So generally, before you get to the PE exam, you have to be verified as having all the requirements that you need to take that PE exam. And then once you've actually passed that exam, then there's steps, just like we mentioned that might occur for the EIT in order to obtain and maintain that license. And so, Hasla, could you talk about your particular steps?
Yeah, so I in fact I got the PE exam, and I'm going to get the license for California. And they're one of the states that don't have a requirement to get permission to sit for the test. So the only requirement is you do the FE, but it should be in the portal. So the NCES portal. Once you have that, then you can just take the PE anytime, as long as you have the education requirements
Ah,
met. Yep.
so in your case, so you took the exam. I'm sorry, could you repeat it? In what state?
So initially, I got the FE. I got the EIT from South Carolina,
Oh, okay.
but then they didn't allow
Oh,
early
oh,
exam taking, which so at that point I had to take a decision on where to move towards. So I decided that it's best to go to California, because wherever you are, you can write it from any state, and it is
oh,
online. So it's on the Pearson centers, it's online. And so you doesn't matter where you live, you can take it from California. And then they have a very strong process and a strong support system in California, especially in California. And they're very supportive. The whole set of folks are very supportive towards people who want to get registered.
ah. Well, that's very interesting. I didn't realize that. Um, I did remember seeing that I looked at, they had a flow chart and it said if you wanted, you can do it this way or you can do it this way. And so it's nice to have different options. So like we mentioned earlier, so where you're licensed is restricted, but you're restricted to those activities, but most of those activities are not ones that, so Hasla is in power, but so he would be restricted to California if he was trying to sign off on plans and use his license for that. But that's a very particular activity that doesn't come up necessarily for every person. And so it varies from person to person and industry to industry, and even more, not even just industry, but what you're doing, your function in the industry. For I've been teaching for quite a while, and I've observed the power and architecture or construction would be the ones most interested in actually having the PE. And I would say in power, it's generally, just my observation, it's generally that they like it as a credential, not that they need um, the signing off of plans. It's just a recognized credential, and that it's important. That's been my observation. So in terms of the PE exam itself, we have, there are these disciplines that are offered, and so I put in blue the one that I would expect to be of most interest. But control systems, I guess I should have put control systems in there and fire protection in there as well, because those are the other ones that have been mentioned to me. And a lot of the mechanical PEs that are in IEEE are PE mechanicals that are in IEEE. And there's other fields. So I did some work in the past year with several professional engineers that were naval architecture, marine, and there are not that many of them, but all of them have PEs, and so it depends on your industry very much where it's most needed. Another interesting thing I noticed was that on the exams, civil has 5 different types of exam, and it sort of represents their interest in the license in that field. So there's 5 different fields of civil where they offer exams, and that's not including the environmental one. And then besides the civil, electrical and computer has 3, and then mechanical also has 3. And so on my next slide, I have the exam by discipline just for the electrical and computer. And what's interesting here, and so Hasala, you took the power exam, is that right?
Yes, I did.
And so the power exam, notice that the power exam is the one that you could take apparently at any time, and it's flexible. Whereas the other 2 exams, computer engineering and electronics control and communications, those are only available now once a year, October 24th this year. It happens to be October 24th, but every year will be approximately that same date. And I suspect October 24th is a Saturday. I'm not certain, but that's my suspicion that used to be the case. And so I think the computer engineering one, another thing that's interesting here is I put at the side, I didn't label it, but those are the pass rates last year for the exams. And so the lowest one, the 38%, is the computer engineering one. And that one is the least taken of the exams. The least number of people sign up to take computer engineering. And the electronics, controls, and communication would be what I would describe as the typical EE degree in the US. Is so we call it electrical engineering, but your typical EE degree is emphasizing electronics, control, and communications. And you do have power. In some countries, you'll have an electronics engineering degree and you'll have an electrical engineering degree. And what you really mean by the electronics engineering degree is this electronics, controls, communication. And by the electrical engineering degree, you mean power. And in the US, that's not, we very rarely distinguish. We would usually call it electrical or electrical and electronic, and then we might have a concentration or an emphasis on power. And so I don't know, what was your experience, Hasala?
Yeah, mine has been the same. You just yeah, that is exactly what so I did electrical engineering, but it was power. But then there was communications, telecommunication, computers separated that, and their focus was, so we specialize. So outside of US, there's a tendency to specialize earlier, whereas in the US, it's more like you decide a major, but it might not be till the latter part of your degree.
Right. And the pass rates are kind of interesting. So I would say the typical pass rate is about the power exam rate across all the disciplines. And the pass rate, I think you don't want to, you should not interpret the pass rate to be how difficult the exam is. It's also reflection of who's taking the exam and their preparation. And so I would think a better representation of sort of how needed it is might be looking at how many people take each exam. And so you can see the fact that the power exam is available year round gives it a privileged place in the interests of the exam, I would say. And I guess since you took it, you didn't have to wait. You took it because it was available all year. You didn't. So back when I was young, you would go and you would see how many people were taking the exam, and now you wouldn't get that. You would just be able to take it online, and we can't tell. We don't have knowledge of that, I guess. So, and that is my total presentation for today, ending at 31 minutes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kathleen and Hasala. So we did. So folks, we are now at the Q&A portion of the webinar. Please send in your questions and comments through the comments or live chat tab from your respective streams. We have gotten quite a few comments and questions actually already, so we'll just go with the from our oldest comments first. So our first comment statement comes from our audience member, Douglas. Hello, thanks for this webinar. I came to the US in 2015, worked as an engineer performed engineering from 2000 to 2015. The first year, tried to apply to PE. It was not possible for getting into the exam. Follows up with, since that date, I've worked as an electrician in the railroad industry. I would like to get directions for being able to become a PE. I don't know whether I have to get the FE first. So so it should also be understood that some of these comments came during the middle of the presentation. So your questions that may have already been answered. But just to recap, Kathleen or Hasala, if you'd like to
yeah,
provide
so
an answer.
it depends upon where Douglas lives, and so it often you do have to get the FE first, but what I found you can do is you can go to the NCEES website that I have listed earlier in the presentation, and you can check for your jurisdiction what the requirements are. And I would say that really it's okay, that it doesn't hurt to just take the FE. It's sort of good. It's good prep. But if you don't want to take the FE, there are places, I think Hasala might know, maybe Hasala, do you have some better ones? I do know that you can look up for every state and territory individually their requirements.
Yeah, Kathleen. So Douglas, I took the same route. So so the first point is to get your bachelor's degree accredited, or you need to get that process so that that's the place where they will allow you to do FE. And even for PE, if you're directly applying for PE, and I will come to that, you still need to get that basic requirement accredited. So you have to submit it to a set of folks. So the first thing you need to do is make an account in NCEES, and then get your bachelor's degree accredited. So they will a set of folks will check what you took, and then they will give you credits based on that, such that you have the minimum necessary requirement to sit for FE. And then once you can sit for FE, once you pass it, then you can sit for PE. Again, there are requirements, but if you're sitting in California, that's not going to be a problem. However, you can petition the board to not sit for FE, but directly sit for PE. So that's another option, which I don't recommend, and I'm completely on board with Kathleen with that. It is a good prep for your PE, and petitioning a board, and I have done that that can be a very lengthy process, and probably is not worth the effort you put in. But one thing you can do, be an IEEE member. In IEEE, we are building a lot of resources to help you. Pass your FE, pass your PE. We can build a community. We are building a community of folks who can help each other learn about these processes, and study and then go through the licensing process together, so that you are not alone. We are a community. We are a lot of folks who have the same needs. So why not work together?
Absolutely. And so remember, I showed earlier the pass rates. And so that's the pass rate. So pretty much almost all the people would have taken the FE exam earlier, and then they still have a pass rate that's saying that the high pass rate is 70 and the low pass rate is in the 30s. And so it can only help you to be able to pass the FE.
Douglas,
Do you have
hope that
another
answers it.
question, Jonathan?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Douglas. So this next question, I think the answer, your previous answer may apply to this one as well. Luis asks,
Oh,
"Hi, I came to the USA a couple years ago. Is there uh, val? I think he's asking, is his previous experience from outside the US valid to get licensed?" And I'm imagine you'd probably still have to go through the steps to licensure that you mentioned before, right?
you do, and but I think his question is probably about whether the experience counts, like in those cases where it's asking for a specific number of years of experience.
Mm.
And so the answer is it depends. And so it's regulated by the individual board at the state level, and so some are much more. It's surprising to me, and I've encountered this quite a bit through my ABET evaluation. The local board will send a representative along with the team that's doing the evaluation, and I'll find out all kinds of interesting differences from place to place. And so, for example, Puerto Rico, I was really surprised that in Puerto Rico, there's much there. It's very desirable, and so desirable to be licensed that you're almost kind of out of the market if you don't get your license. Whereas in California, they really want you to be licensed. They want to encourage you to help you with the process, but there's a lot of exemptions for large companies, so that you don't have to be licensed for many activities that, say, in another state or territory you might really need a license. It's not necessary. So the answer is that you have to check with the individual requirements, but I did find there was a link to them specifically. You could search by your state or territory and find a link to the details.
It
And
definitely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
just to add to what Kathleen said, for Luis, for California, yes, you can. So yes, you need to check, but in California, it's a
Okay.
but yeah, it's a lengthy process, but still but if it's South Carolina, they would not accept your anything that's not under a PE license in the US system, but the California system does.
Yeah, when every state has its own regulations, it definitely does make it hard to provide a single. There is no single answer for every question, right?
Yeah.
Especially because it varies.
Oh, but it's a good answer that you can shop around.
Yeah, definitely worth it to look onto the website when you have the chance. This next question, I hope I don't butcher the name. Shmoon asks, are graduates from non-ABET accredited engineering programs allowed to sit in for the FE and PE exams? I know the ABET controls the PE credential itself, but can we just sit in and take the exams?
Similarly, so the FE exam it's the same exam so far as I know for the FE. In the case of the PE, they have additional sections that vary by state and territory. But I believe that the qualifications to be allowed to take the FE vary from anybody could take it to that you have you have to go through some sort of recognition step to be allowed to take it. Hasala, do you know more than I do?
Yeah, you can't apply for the FE unless you get your minimum requirements accredited through that process. So if you have say you have from Sri Lanka, you have to send you, and that even though I had the PhD, they still wanted the bachelor's, and that's one interesting thing. You get your bachelor's, and get that through the credentialing, kind of not credentialing but evaluation process. And once the NCES gets that confirmation, that's when they will be like giving you that option to select the FE exam, put it into your cart, and sit for the exam. So that's what I have observed.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen Hasala, and thank you, Shamoon, for the question. Next question from our audience member. Josh asks, if I take the FE and I have 10 to 15 years of experience, can you immediately take the PE? I'm assuming if you've already met the previous requirements.
Right. Well, so yes, if it's being offered, the one you want is offered all the time, and the 10 to 15 years experience has to be it has to be sufficient years of experience that they count in that jurisdiction. So, which, as Hasala is saying, in California, we're looser, and then we would say yes immediately. But in other places, they would be more restrictive, that they wanted that experience to be meeting certain conditions or documented in certain ways.
Great, Josh. Hope that answers your question. Let me see. Our next question. So our audience member asks, just wondering, is
that's a good question. So the software, they actually stopped offering the software engineering exam because there wasn't enough interest in software engineering. And so they do still have a computer engineering version of the exam. And so there are those that find it a worthwhile and useful credential for them to take. I think that there are a lot of credentials, and it really depends on your particular technical interests that are software related, what's of high interest to you. One way to tell that is that the people who you are working with and the people that you look up to, that you're hoping to be on that same track, if you look at them and they commonly have a PE, then that would be a good indicator. If you look at them and they don't commonly, and you don't know, you might not see any, then there might be other credentials that would be a better use of your time. And so software is, in general, software has developed in a very different way with a very different perspective than engineering. Computer engineering brings together sort of the software side and the hardware side, which has the more traditional engineering background. But there's any number of people that call themselves software engineers, and their companies call them software engineers, that don't have engineering degrees at all and would have a great deal of difficulty passing the FE exam. And so that might not be the best for them. However, if you're a person that you do have that engineering background and you're working with the public or with governments or with a lot of people that have PEs, and especially if you're confident that you have a good chance of passing, it might be worth your time to do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kathleen. And our audience member, Santosh, does follow up. One of the reasons why I'm asking this question is I've never heard of this one from either recruiters or colleagues.
Right. And so back at the beginning of the presentation, I had some, things to think about. And so it really depends. I think Hasala would say, and he can speak for himself, that in his industry, a lot of people have PEs, and you're kind of not in the club a bit as you become a senior level person if you don't have one. But there's all kinds of software and digital design technical fields where virtually no one would have one, because that's not the kind of work that they're doing.
Great, thank you, Kathleen. This next question from our audience member, name isn't showing up, but I believe his name is Christopher. Christopher asks, regarding a PE license, can you obtain a PE in medical device engineering regarding a multidisciplinary understanding of electrical engineering and mechanical engineering?
So that's an interesting question. So if you look at the 7 disciplines or the 7 areas where you can take the FE, one of them is quote unquote other disciplines, and arguably that's a general one. But if you look at the PE exam questions, and I think I can scroll back to, so here are the disciplines on the PE exam, and I don't see biomedical there at all, or as agricultural and biological is, and I think that one is not intended to be biomedical devices, is my suspicion. And so I think that in general, there's a case to be made for integrated engineering disciplines, but as a degree. But the PE process is about expertise and a credential in it's a technical expertise and competence that you're being attested to, and that doesn't fit well with a multidisciplinary. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Hasala, what do you think?
Yeah, that is a very interesting question. So I think this also leads to what Bill is saying. He's saying that his dad got his PE, and he got his bachelor's. His dad got his bachelor's from New York University in 1938, and he's 75. He's asking if it's appropriate for him to bone up for FE and PE. Absolutely. So I think it's a challenge. So you can probably find some reasonable fit and then go for it. If you're old and if you have a lot of experience, you can always apply for a waiver to the board. But if you want to take the challenge, absolutely go for it. It's a very satisfying exam. It looks at fundamentals. It is very enjoyable. So I think the opportunity, it doesn't matter what your age is, go for it. In fact, when I was talking to the California evaluator, so I called him to see what I had to do to get the license, and he told me that if you can also write for the fire protection. So I wrote the PE exam, and then he said it might be better to also just write another exam, pass it, and apply together. So it's just, I don't think there is any limitation. And on Santosh Kumar's question here, best if you're looking for a job, the best thing is to look at, in terms of applicability to what you're doing. Look at what the job vacancies say in LinkedIn or in another in another media, and if they say PE preferred or FE preferred, that is a good indication that this will have value in the industry you're working in. Yeah, it is an enjoyable exercise. I definitely vouch for that. So if you have the opportunity, try it and see where you are, and it will definitely give you an indication of what you need to improve on as well.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys. Oh, sorry. My mouse just suddenly stopped working. So I believe we are approaching the end of our questions. Folks, if you do come up with any more, feel free to send them in the comments live chat section. So this last question from one of our audience members is there any push to have the telecommunications engineering have a PE? Safeguards and implications of negative consequences can stem from a lack of standardized minimum requirements, PE for telecommunications.
Well, one of the second flavor of the EE includes communications, but there are degrees that are telecommunications engineering, but honestly, Hildegard, there are not many of them. In the US, you could do a search on ABET's website and see the number of programs. But I think that the total number of programs worldwide is countable on my fingers that are accredited. And so what drives the exams is the interest and desire for people to have such an exam. And so I think telecommunications is a field where it makes perfect sense that you'd want to have a licensed engineer involved in those issues. But the education that goes with that is not so specialized. And so it leads away from that unless telecommunication engineering as a degree becomes much more popular than it is right now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kathleen. So we do have a couple more questions from our audience members. Timothy asks or says, so I obtained PE as a petroleum engineer. I'm switching careers to computer and software engineering. Do I need to redo my PE examination?
No, you don't. So I think if I was hiring you and I saw that you had a PE, I might ask you how you got that PE. But I think that the payoff for you, particularly given that there is no real software PE exam, the payoff for you to redo it is almost none. That's just my take on it.
Timothy, hope that answers your question. This next question, Francisco asks, does it matter where you take your PE exam?
Well, not in the sense that it's electronic, right, Hasala?
So yes, so if you take it at a Pearson Center, it does not matter, but it is about where you're applying to get the PE, what state. And it matters because there are different, just like Kathleen explained in detail, there are different processes going into different states, different requirements that need to be met. So yeah, so it does matter if you are looking at the state in terms of licensing, but it does not matter where you live as long as you are close to a Pearson Center in terms of taking the exam.
Hope that answers your question, Francisco. Thanks for the question. So I believe that's it for our audience member questions. So before we close up, I'd just like to ask one question, one final question for both of you, just because I know we've gone over this quite a few times about the benefits and importance of the exams. Just kind of reiterate and provide our audience members. So how and where can one prepare for the examinations for both PE and FE exams?
Well, there are exam prep courses available. I think I even saw that there's one on IEEE learning management tool. I might be forgetting the exact name of it. So there's IEEE versions of it, and there's self-taught. There's computer-based videos that people can watch. There's books. There are a lot of materials. There's sample exams or sample questions available, and so there are a lot of options, and it's quite common to take a course. Hasala, did you take a course?
I did not. For the FE, I just used the sample example, or there is a small booklet available for free from NCES. So I used that. It is an MCQ exam, so it's pretty easy. It's It's not too hard. And then for PE, I did buy a book and look through it, but it is mostly fundamentals. And one thing you guys need to keep in mind is that if you write it in a computer format, most of the things you can search. So if you're smart about how you search for answers, how to Google properly, I think there are lots of answers that are already out there. You don't need to have them by heart, because typically it's a closed book test. And but if you know how to Google it, you can get it. And if you are interested in getting help from IEEE, send an email to yp@ieee.org. We are developing some products, some with Region 5, to see how we can be of more help to those of you who are going through the process, including creating some study groups, getting some tutors as part of your membership benefits of IEEE.
Fantastic. Thank you both. So, folks, as Kathleen and both Hasala mentioned, IEEE USA does have some resources on the resources for the PE and FE exam training materials. IEEE USA is partnered with PPI and Kaplan to offer these to IEEE members at a discounted rate as well. PPI provides engineering licensure test prep for the FE, PE, and even SE exams. It's also part of the Kaplan professional family, a global leader in test prep, certification programs, and educational services to colleges and corporations across the globe. So be sure to check that out if you'd like. I think that's it for, I think we're out of time now. Kathleen, Hasala, we really appreciate having you both with us today and providing your insight into the importance of engineering licensure and becoming a professional engineer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
all.
Jonathan.
And
All right.
thank you to our audience for your great questions and for tuning in as well. As mentioned during the live stream, you will be able to access these webinars on demand post live stream. Please like and subscribe to our channels on social media and check back daily for future live stream updates. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you all. Take care.